Hello players, this video is going to be me setting up the Remote 3 from Unfolded Circle from scratch. So I really hope that you didn't come here to be entertained, because that's all we're going to be doing. So the camera's going to be fixed on the remote and we're going to have the web interface open. I'm going to do as much setup as I can on the remote itself because that's going to be more interesting. And then things that I can't do on here we'll go through on the web interface. If you want a more general overview of the Remote 3 from Unfolded Circle and its predecessor, the Remote 2, I've got some links in the description that you might find interesting, or at least a little bit more entertaining than watching somebody set up a remote. Okay, so we're going to be setting up the Remote 3 from Unfolded Circle. Now I have played around with it a little bit before, so we are going to do a factory reset just here to make sure that everything is, well, there's nothing weird going on. So while that's factory resetting, I should tell you that there are two new hardware features that are on this remote. The touch slider and the RGB backlight are not turned on, so I can't demo those today. But what we'll do is we'll go through the setup. I'll get a few devices added. So I'm going to add an Android TV over the Android TV integration. I'm going to add the NVIDIA Shield over Bluetooth. I'm going to add an HDMI switcher over infrared and Home Assistant. That should cover most of the bases for setting up different devices. So the setup here is, I think it's identical to Remote 2 from what I remember, but I did have the Remote 2 quite early and I didn't get to go through this setup. So let's have a look here. United Kingdom, GB, time zone. Now for some reason there's UTC +1 down there. Don't choose that one. Choose, well, I'm in England, so I'm choosing London. Set a pin. I didn't do that correctly. Don't tell anybody. Remote 2 comes up as the default name. Let's rename that to Remote 3. I like that. Let's do that. Okay, profile name default, fine. So Wi-Fi setup is next. Going to get it on the network. Obviously, I'm going to do this bit off camera because of the Wi-Fi password. We are done with the Wi-Fi setup. Got a little cloth here because greasy hands. What I'm going to do is do as much of the setup as I can on the remote, and things that I can't do or don't make sense to do, probably the Home Assistant setup is going to be done on the configurator tool, but I'll do as much as I can on here. So it's allowing us to discover docks. Now it has picked up my dock 2. I don't have the dock 3, unfortunately. They didn't let me play with that one, but I've got the dock 2. We can add it, and we can just, I think we can just next through all of this, and it will get the dock added. Now the dock 2 obviously looks like it's compatible with the Remote 3, so that's good, but you cannot charge it in the dock 2. It doesn't fit. I did ask if there could perhaps be some kind of a sleeve or adapter to put in there. That would be nice, but as of right now, you can't charge with the dock 2, but you can still use it to send out infrared commands. Okay, so the first thing we are going to set up is the Android TV. I'm using the Sony Bravia 7, the latest model, before the new ones come out this year, later this year, I think. Anyway, so let's go for the Android TV. Setup process. The integration will discover your Android TVs on your network. During the setup process, you may need a PIN. So I'm going to see if it will detect it automatically without having to put the IP address in. Probably would help if the TV is turned on. Let's get that turned on. And it's found the shield, but I don't want to control the shield with the Android TV. We're going to set that up over Bluetooth. Let's scan again because the TV wasn't on, and hopefully it'll pick up the Sony. Next. I think that was my fault because I didn't have the TV on. Okay, so we've got allow USB debugging. Allow. So I think I had to allow it on the TV first, and then we'll do this again. Okay, so I got it that time. Now, that might have been because I was playing around with it before and it kind of remembered it or forgot it. I don't know. But there's a pin now on the TV. I've got a small camera you can see there. And I have to put that in here. So we have got 0, 7, 0, E, 0, E. Done. Next. Remote 3 successfully paired. Perfect. So I can go back home on the Google TV and we will add that. Select entities to appear. Okay, I needed to select it first and then we can add it. Done. So adding the Sony TV over Android TV was pretty straightforward. Next, we're going to do the NVIDIA Shield, but we're going to do that over Bluetooth, not another Android TV integration. I think you can add as many Android TV integrations as you want, but I kind of want to test all the features of the remote. Okay, it's not on the list, so let's just go next for now. Web configurators disabled, we'll enable that because we'll probably want to use it in a minute. And then there's some useful tips about the status bar and what things mean there. Now, one useful tip would be to tell you that this is a full color screen because most of the icons are in black and white. Okay, so we can go up here, we can go to settings, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, make sure that's switched on by default. Bluetooth is switched on, Wi-Fi is switched on. Fine. Let's go back here, go back here. No, we want to go there. I do apologize. We want to go to integrations and we want to add an integration. Okay, so, oh, I don't want to do Sonos. Okay, so Bluetooth isn't on this list. So we will have to do Bluetooth in the web configurator. So let's bring that page up. The configurator still shows images to remote to. I'm sure that will get updated. Enter the pin. Pin is on here. 0788. Every time you turn off and turn on the configurator, you will get a new pin. So there's new firmware, new dock firmware available. Okay, we'll ignore that for now. So this is the configurator V2. It is in beta, but it is available for the Remote 2 if you have a Remote 2. But so yeah, the Remote 2 is getting all the same configurator updates that the Remote 3 is. So if we go over, now I know this doesn't make sense. So we've got entities, integrations, activities and macros, and settings, and we'll be going through all of those at some point. Mainly we'll be going through them on the remote. In order to add a Bluetooth, you would think you would head over to integrations and then add it here, but there's only install custom and that is not what we want. What we want is Bluetooth and that is under entities. And we have to add it under entities. Very difficult words to say. But if this was me, as a suggestion, I would put it under a little add button under integrations as well, just to avoid any confusion. We will go to add new, and here we can choose, there's a few more things we can add here. So infrared is on that list, Bluetooth is on that list, and the dock is on that list, as well as all the other integrations that were on the remote. Why it's not on the remote and it's only on the configurator, I have no idea, but we are going to go with Bluetooth. We're going to call this NVIDIA Shield, description, new, I don't know, device profile. We'll leave that as default for now. Let's see what happens. Enable pairing. So that's waiting for a pairing request, and then we just go into the NVIDIA Shield settings. I think it's remotes and accessories. Add Bluetooth. It's found the remote 2. Pairing. You have to enter these numbers. So that's 901397. Confirm. And pairing success. Awesome. Successfully paired with the Bluetooth device. So we can customize this now, but we will do that later. And now we want to get Home Assistant and infrared added. And it looks like we can only do the infrared in the interface, and Home Assistant is much easier in the interface as well. So we give it our Home Assistant address, and it needs a long-lived access token. So in order to get that, we need to head over to Home Assistant and go to our user name, and down here we have got long-lived access tokens. And here's one I played with earlier, so we'll just delete that one. We'll keep the Remote 2 one because I need that. Give it a name, so we'll call it Remote 3. Okay. This is the access token, blocked out, of course, on your screen. And paste that in there and press next. I didn't think that would work because my IP address for Home Assistant doesn't work over this. It never has done since I installed it. That's more of a Home Assistant problem than a Remote 3 problem. Oh. Let's see if that works. There we go. So, yeah, that local address has never worked for me, but I thought I'd give it a shot anyway. So we'll add a couple of entities here. Just press a button on the remote to keep it awake. If the remote goes into standby, then it does shut off the configurator that you're working on because it's talking directly to the remote. So that's just something to keep in mind if you plan on lingering around in the configurator. You can turn off the sleep function within the remote if you're planning on spending some time here. So what we'll do is, since we are going to set up something for game mode, we will have Wake on LAN that turns on the Media Center PC. And I'm not sure if there's anything else worth adding in here. Oh, we could do the lights, I suppose. Living room light, we'll add that one. And there's so many in here. So you don't want to obviously add every single one of your entities from Home Assistant because then you're going to have a really long list of things. You're going to pick the ones that are going to be important to you. Okay, we'll just do those two. For now, you're all set, done. So now we have these entities. We've got the TV, we've got the NVIDIA Shield over Bluetooth, we've got Wake on LAN, which is part of Home Assistant, and the living room light, which is also part of Home Assistant. So that's that bit. Next, we're going to add the infrared for the HDMI switcher. So we're going to call this HDMI switcher. To create a blank interface, you will need to learn the code yourself. I don't think it's going to have this. Search for manufacturer. So this is by Ugreen. It's actually a really good little HDMI switcher. It's 4K 120 VRR, so it's a pretty nice one. Yeah, it's not there. Of course it's not. So let's go back and we'll create it from blank. Give a unique device for the IR dataset. This will be linked to the custom manufacturer. So device name, well, it's a HDMI switch. Over here we've got import, is it? Import infrared codes, so you can import them from a CSV file. I don't have that. We can export them, so that would be handy if you wanted to share them. Or we can add them, and let's go for HDMI1, and we can learn the HDMI code. Okay, I don't think you can have any spaces. So we can learn them from the dock. It doesn't look like we can learn them from the remote, so I will get up and do that. Okay, so I do apologize for the drop in quality. I'm using an action cam for this. So start learning, press the button, and it looks like it learnt it. Can we test it? We can test it here, so let's... Okay, so I'm going to put the HDMI switch on 5 and then leave the remote there, and then I'm going to test it, and hopefully we'll see it switch over to HDMI 1 when I press the test button. Let's come back over. And it did it. Fantastic. So this is all happening through the dock at the moment, and we're not doing anything infrared with the remote yet. Let's just press a button to keep that awake. Okay, but we can save that, and then we can add HDMI 2, learn code, start learning. And here we are, learn number 2. And that's that. So I'm going to fast forward and work through the other 3 HDMI channels that this switcher has. So that's pretty painless for the HDMI switcher. What I am going to do is clear that out of there. And I am going to save those because I don't have that on the remote 2, and I'm just going to import them. Before we do our first page on the remote, I'm going to do a quick tour of the settings because we never did that at the start. So we go up here to the D. I'm not sure what the D is for. It's next to the battery indicator. Oh, that's the profile name. Called default. Awesome. We can go in here. We can add a new profile. So we can add a profile for each user. So if you've got kids and you want them on like a restricted mode where you don't give them access to all of your devices and they can't change any functionality, then that's there. You can add a normal profile as well. And can we change anything on this profile? We can select that profile. What happens if we press and hold? Nothing. We can't change the name there. Okay, so on here you've got the configurator address. If you type this into a browser on any device, it will take you to the configurator page. If you click this, it brings up the QR code to take you there quicker, so you don't have to type that really long address. It would be nice if they could shorten this, but it is what it is. This is a PIN number that you get for connecting to the configurator, and you can just refresh that if you want to change it, if you think it's leaked for some reason. Software update, you can check for updates, turn on auto update. I've got that all switched off for now. Settings. So in here we've got display and brightness, auto brightness, display brightness, button backlight, and button backlight brightness. We can turn all this up or down. You're not going to see it very well on the camera. Now I'm just going to head back to the configurator quickly because in here is development features. What can we do here? Preview features. Multiple Bluetooth LE connections. So that's nice. We can turn that on if we wanted to. Oh, that's where we turn on the internal IR blaster. Obviously, it's not quite supported yet, but we can play around with it in its current state. New reconnect logic. I think this should be on by default. This reconnects a lot faster over Wi-Fi when you wake it up from sleep. So most of the time you don't have to have the keep awake feature on, which we'll show in a minute, and there's a restart button there. Okay, so in display, there is a option on the configurator to change the backlight color. Currently, this isn't functional. So I'll set it to a bright blue. Okay, and nothing happens. So yeah, the option's there, and I'm sure that they're going to come up with some really cool useful features for that when you start building out your home screens. But for now, it's not switched on, but it is definitely in the menu, so it's definitely on the radar. Okay, so that was display and brightness. It's not on here, but it is on the other configurator. The user interface. Again, this is going to be almost identical to the R2, so if you have the R2, you can skip this bit, I suppose. But show battery percentage, I like to have that on. Inverted button behavior, that was requested, and they put that in. Sound effects and volume. Power saving, this is power saving. Yeah. Power saving, you can adjust the sleep timeout actually for this demonstration. Let's put that all the way to 5 minutes just while we're playing around with it. Wake up sensitivity, I think the sensitivity is fine. Again, if you want it to be more sensitive to wake up, you can. This keep Wi-Fi connected in standby, you can turn it on per activity, which is where I would turn it on rather than on all the time. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, as we can see, we have Bluetooth turned on. We've got the Wi-Fi turned on. And there we go. So it's Wi-Fi, 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, which is obviously a lot faster than the 2.4, but the range is more limited. So there's that. Localization, all the usual stuff in there for changing languages and changing it to freedom units if you want to. Administrator pin, again, ours was 1234, but I highly suggest that you change that. Integrations, it shows us what we've currently got running on the remote. For some reason, it's not showing us our Bluetooth and infrared. Okay, and the dock, we can see what docks are connected, and about, I think it's just going to take us, oh, that's quite nice. So you can see MAC address and Wi-Fi addresses there and things like that. Okay, very nice. So let's go through this and add our first page. We will call it subscribe, because I bet you're all still awake and on the edge of your seats. Okay, press and hold the home button or use the web configurator to configure the page. We're going to go as far as we can with the remote because you want to see it in action and you want to see me press buttons. Okay, so let's add an entity to this homepage. So we'll add the Bravia 7, we'll add the HDMI switcher, we'll add, well, let's just, yeah, no, let's do that. We don't want that. We want to put that as part of an activity. So we'll add these 3 devices. And now when we go into one of these, we have the remote working for that device. So this is controlling the Sony Bravia 7. So if I go back here, it's controlling the 7. It's actually controlling the NVIDIA Shield via CEC, which I don't like, and I don't know how it turned on because I turned it off, but never mind. So we can go over to the Shield, and then if we wanted to come out of that, we can go into the NVIDIA Shield, and this should now be controlling it over Bluetooth, which it is. Fantastic. And we've got some pre-configured things set up here, numbers, menus, play, pause, buttons, all that kind of stuff. I'm guessing when we chose default on the setup, that's what the layout chose for us. But again, we can change all this if we want to. And the HDMI switcher is an empty page. You can configure, you can add UI elements via the web configurator. Okay, fine. So we can't, well, yeah, we can do that. So if I go over to the web configurator and go over to our entities and look at HDMI switcher, we don't want to do it in, oh, we do want to do it here. We want to go to user interface, and here we can add those buttons. So if you're familiar with the Remote 2, then this is exactly the same process. You can change the grid size. The default's probably the best one because you don't have to do it by individual squares. You can, let's just do an icon button. Yeah, let's leave that as default. Let's do that as HDMI in caps. HDMI 1, and then we can have this as the full width 3, 4, and the command is going to be HDMI 1. Why can't I see it? There was a bit of a hiccup there. It wouldn't show me my HDMI commands, so I had to just go out and come back in, or I think refreshing the page would have done it. But anyway, we have HDMI 1 now, and so that's that button set up, and you can see it on the remote there. And what you can do is, if we go over to select, we can select these and copy, and then paste them in there. Same again. Let's do 2 now, and paste them in there, and then we just want more. Copy and paste. So you can make layouts very quickly, and then we can go into edit, and then we can just change what these do. So an icon, we can set that to HDMI 2, and then we can do the same for the rest. that's a pretty lame screen. Okay, but we can do a lot more than this. If we press and hold the home button, it's not allowing us to set up activities on the remote, which is a shame. We can add a group, which is, yeah, lights and living room light. I should have added more than one light, but we've got lights there. So this will turn off and on the lights. Here's a light. We'll go off and we'll go on. Magic. Oh, and the lights are, of course, running via Home Assistant. And that's cool. So the Home Assistant is working. In order to set up activities, we do have to do that via the interface. So we can add our first activity. We'll call this Watch TV. And here's that prevent sleep option. While the activity is on, the remote will go to sleep. No battery life will be reduced. So I think that the wake up time is fast enough now. So what I would say is leave it off. And if you find it's not fast enough for you in your network, your environment, then go back and turn this on afterwards. So what do we want for Watch TV? We want the Bravia 7, we want the NVIDIA Shield, and we want the HDMI switcher. Done. Okay, so you can add descriptions here. I never bother to add descriptions. I think I can remember what I'm doing pretty much. But if you've got something really complicated that you need to know what it's doing, then that's where you would do it. So let's wake up the remote again. Let's go over to sequences and we can do our on-off sequence. Let's do what we did here. So we're going to go for, is it going to be power? It's not going to be power. Let's go for on. There we go. Switch on Bravia 7. And then we want to switch the HDMI switcher to HDMI 1. And that's it. I keep the NVIDIA Shield on all the time. And then we also want the okay, so that's fine for the on sequence, and then for the off sequence, we want to switch off the Bravia 7, and we can leave the HDMI switcher as it is, it doesn't matter. Okay, so for the user interface, this is going to be specific for that activity. So here you can mix and match commands from different remotes. So we've got all here. So we've got the HDMI switcher, HDMI 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got all the Bravia 7 commands. We've got all of the NVIDIA Shield Bluetooth remote commands. We can combine all of those onto one or as many screens as makes sense. So there are a lot of icons to choose from and not a lot of great search keywords. Unicorn. Yeah, sure, we'll have a unicorn. So those icons could do with some better keywords. It only matches the name. It would be nice if they were tagged with different things because there's literally, I don't know, it's probably a couple of thousand. I reckon we're down to B there, and then we're still on B. And if we go again, B, and you just started on C. Okay, so there's quite a lot of icons there, but you can upload custom icons as well if you want. You've got the Home Assistant ones there, and you can do them in full color. I think they're just ping images that you can use if you want. So so we'll stick with the one we've got for that. And I don't think I added the light here, did I? No, I did not. So if you want to add something afterwards, you can just go back to the settings and add a new entity. So we'll add the living room light. Oh yeah, just there we go. And then that's part of the included entities. And then I can just go back over here and add it to the screen. If I go up here, I can edit and we can change the icon to something that makes more sense. And then to save time, we can copy that, Paste that there. Edit, turn off, and change the icon back. You can add new pages, so page 2, and then you can do the whole configuration again, and you don't have to keep with the same grid. You can modify the grid however you see fit and have as many squares on there as you want. If you wanted to do like a full keyboard, I'm sure that's absolutely possible to do on there as well. So we've got that, and then we can go over to button mapping, and again it's identical to the R2, but on here we've got two actions for every single button. We've got the long press and the short press. Now when you set up an activity, these are not configured by default. So what we can do is go through each one and tell them what we want to control. So for example, this is watch TV. This will automatically switch over to the NVIDIA Shield, and I want to control the NVIDIA Shield. So what I'm going to do is use these arrow buttons. So channel up, for example, under the short press, I want that as up on the NVIDIA Shield. So key up arrow, NVIDIA Shield. I did that on channel up. I did that on the wrong thing. So we can do that and reset to default, and that will clear it. So that's fine. We actually want to do that on the up button. Like that. So when you first set up an activity, it's going to take a bit of time going through all the buttons, long press and short press, deciding what you want them to do. But once it's set up and it's good. But what is really nice about this is that you can just copy an activity, call it play game, or just game mode. There we go, that'll do. Done. And it carries over the button mappings, it carries over the user interface. It's an exact copy. It gives you a good place to start from. So now for game mode, all I'm going to add here is media wake on LAN to turn on the PC. And what we are going to do is then go over to the on sequence. I'm going to add that there. Press media wake on LAN. And instead of it going to HDMI 1, this is going to go, I'm going to delete that and add HDMI 2 for the HDMI switcher. Again, it doesn't matter what order for my setup that these are going into, but you can reorder them however you like. Now, with the old Logitech devices, it really got funny if you decided to, well, you couldn't add anything else new after you set it up. This is a lot more flexible and a lot more free. You can just literally choose whatever you want, wherever you want, and it just sorts it out. If we go back to the home screen, we can now customize our remote. I'll keep this activated because I think it updates live, or I'm actually using it anyway. And then instead of this subscribe page, we can have a media page. Well, no, let's call it a TV page. Or untitled. Untitled is also good. Let's rename that to TV. There we go. TV doesn't have any items yet. No, so what we can do is we can edit this, we can edit contents, add some entities. So we are going to add, this is where we're going to add our watch TV and our game mode. Add. So whenever we press these on the remote, oops, on this TV here, they will start those activities. They'll start the on-off sequences and go through them that way. And maybe we don't want watch TV at the top. Maybe we want it down there. You see? it is really cool how that updates immediately. There are some things on here that are really nice and fluid, and I'm glad that's like that. So anyway, we go back. You can also add groups if you want to do your groups as well. You can add those. And there we are. Let's edit this TV one again, because what we can do is replace the background, and let's give it this nice stock TV one here. And then for the subscribe one, we will sync. Yeah, why not? A basin. There you go. So now you can sort of see, it's obviously faded, but you can see the full color screen now. And that is kind of the, so yeah. So if we go over to TV, let's press watch TV. We've got our empty page that we set up, and we've got our unicorns, and we can turn the lights off and on and press a unicorn. The power button will end that activity. So that turns off the TV, and I think that was all it did. It turns off the TV. But you can reconfigure that power button to be whatever you like. It doesn't have to be the switch off activity. Now, if you do try and reconfigure any of these back, home and power buttons, it does give you a little warning that you may get stuck in some menus because they're used for navigating the remote itself. So just keep that in mind when you change these buttons. Okay, let's go for game mode. PC is turned on. And I've got the same menu as what I had because I copied it. So we've added Home Assistant, we've added infrared, we've added Bluetooth, we've added Android TV. Unfortunately, Android TV was the only one that you could set up on the remote itself. The rest you had to use with the configurator. Now, I would like to see more functionality built into the remote so you can do more things on the remote itself, but I understand why it's like that way for now. You can add the Home Assistant integration on the remote itself as well, but you do need to copy that long access token, which I think is about 100 characters long, and there's no way I'm typing that on that tiny keyboard, so we use the configurator for that one. I think a lot of these others also work, but so we've also got Denon, AVR, Roku, Bang & Olufsen, Roon, Apple TV, Philips Hue, and Sonos. They should all be absolutely fine to add and configure via the remote, but the complicated ones like Bluetooth, infrared, and Home Assistant, ones that I use, required the configurator, unfortunately. But there it is. So all the buttons are functional on this. It does make a really nice click. It does feel really good to use. The form factor is so much better than the R2 in terms of the width, because I've got tiny hands. If you have slightly larger hands, might not be a problem. But I really prefer it being this form factor. It just feels a little bit nicer to me. And then on the back there, we've got the wireless charging section. If you're still awake and with me, congratulations, well done. That's that's pretty hardcore to stick around for that long watching that. So that's the basic setup of the remote done. Now I am going to spend the next 2 to 3 hours setting it up perfectly, doing all the icons, getting it exactly how I want it. As I said, that's going to take me probably about 3 hours. It's going to take as long as the amount of effort that you want to put into it. You may be happy with something like I've done just now, which we did in about, an hour, something like that. If you really want to nail down every single specific part of your setup and get it exactly fine-tuned to be perfect, well, then spend the time on it once and then you have it for forever. This remote is, again, the perfect hardware-wise. Software-wise, still a little way to go, but I think that'll come really quickly. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope this has been worthwhile to you. If you do have any questions, let me know in the comments like now, because I have to send this back very soon. I'm going to hold on to it for as long as I can, but I'm pretty sure they're going to ask for it back very soon. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I'll try to get the correct answers for you. But thank you so much for sticking around, and until next time, keep playing and be excellent to each other.